Hey folks, Ted from Immersion here, and I am very excited to be bringing a short little mini-series here to the channel for all of you. It's not something that I haven't done in the past, but this is the first time that it's ever been officially sponsored by the folks involved. Yeah, that's right, you saw it on the title, and I'm telling you now, I have an official sponsored video by the DMs Guild. The wonderful folks and the team and Lisa over at the DMs Guild reached out to me and said, hey, we'd like to collaborate. We know you review DMs Guild content. What do you say? And obviously I said, sure, I always want to do more DMs Guild content. So this is perfect. So for today on Wednesday and tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, there will be a DMs Guild video happening each day covering a different topic. They kind of gave me some parameters and it was really interesting to work with them. They said, pick out what you like best in these three categories. Tell us which one you like. We'll send it to you for free. You do a review on it, and we'll also give you a coupon code that you can give to your fans that they can use to get money off of a DMs Guild purchase as well. So that's coming later in the video too. So the first up for today is the best Arctic Icewind Dale themed. I figured Rime of the Frost Maiden's still pretty new for a lot of folks. Some people probably haven't had a chance to play it, or they're playing through it right now. So I thought, hey, you know what? This makes sense. Let's cover that. So we're going to jump over to the DMs Guild right now, and I'll show you. We're going to be talking about Icewind Dale, a setting guidebook. Doesn't kind of get more on the nose than that. Tells you what it is. This is the some folks that you may recognize, Trevor Armstrong, Grim Press, the adaptable NPC folks, if you're familiar with those supplements, and I've done reviews on those in the past, that's this team. It's a best silver seller, 4.5 stars for 4 ratings, and it's basically going to give you a lot of really cool stuff, and some of it is very, very nice. I really want to talk about it. So you're going to get expanded lore for 10 towns, which is good if you're running, even if you're not running Icewind Dale and you're just going to run a Sword Coast game, and your party may find themselves in 10 towns, this would be a great resource for you. It definitely expands above and beyond what's contained in Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. 5 new subclasses, including one for the homebrew full class that I think Grim Press released, the Pale Master. Pale Master is like a necromancer type class. So they made a specific one for that, as well as Barbarian, Monk, Rogue, and Sorcerer. Some optional rules, which I really, really like for weather-based encounters and weather things, so I like those. A 3 to 6 hour adventure, which is also really good, and it deals with one of my favorite monsters out there, the Ramaraz. And then 14 magical items, as well as 16 new monsters or beasts. They say beasts, but it's really monsters. And then also battle maps. If you can see here, there is a zip file where you can just get a bunch of battle maps, as well. So that's enough from me. Let's jump into it. First of all, sweet looking art on the front. Well, fighting a white dragon. So we don't have bookmarks, guys. What do I tell you? Put bookmarks in your PDFs. So instead, we're gonna have to scroll through it. But you can see right here we have our different chapters. So let's go to chapter 1, and we'll look at through Icewind Dale. Now I'm probably gonna scroll through this kind of quick, because you'll kind of get the gist of it as we go through. So first of all, it shows you who the governmental officials are and who they recently replaced. And I like it because it does go all the way up to current, and I don't remember in Icewind Dale if it covers it, but I know there's some significantly impactful things that happen in the Drizzt novels in Icewind Dale, even like the later novels, and that's referenced in here as well, which I thought was cool. So again, we actually have inn and taverns, and then like with some specific NPCs beside it, some shop names. Again, feel free to take these and drop them into your homebrew world. That doesn't have to be just Icewind Dale. If you need a shop, you could take Black Iron Blades and throw it into your game easily enough. The thing I was referencing here was the statue of Tiago Beanri, which is in 1466 DR, so that's relatively recent, I guess, in this grand scheme of the Forgotten Realms. But anyway, and they have a quest hook as well in all of these different towns, so you could do different things. So now we're into East Haven, same thing. We have our inns and taverns, our shops, landmarks, and so on. And you can see that we get Caer Konig, Caer Dineval, Tourmaline, Lonelywood, Dugan's Hole, Bremen, Goodmead, and so on. This dwarf, this female dwarf's armor, a very interesting armor choice. And then we get into kind of the open tundra. We got some, barbarian stuff going on here. I really like this party art. That's my biggest thing is like I would love to make books or make products on the DMs Guild and commission an artist so like we could have like a thing and this could be my party. That's like it's not a nitpick. I don't know why I said that. That's a thing that I want to do so that I could be like, hey, look, that's my party in a thing that I put out there, but like that's like a fun thing for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. And then Kelvin's Cairn as well. And then now we're into the player options. So I read through all of them. I'm not super familiar with the Pale Master, so we're not going to focus on that. I think I'm probably going to give you the Barbarian and the Monk, because I thought that those were pretty good. The Barbarian samples a lot from other areas, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So Scorn of the Elements at level 3. While raging, you get resistance to 1 damage type of your choice. Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder. You can choose a different type each time you're raging. So it's not as powerful as Bear Barbarian, but you get a resistance to an elemental type. And then Survival of the Fittest. If you kill a medium or larger creature, you are able to spend 1 hour to create a simple hunting weapon from its remains. This is basically what the lizard folk have as a class feature. It's a similar thing where you can basically use body parts to make things. Then at 6th level, we get Embrace Nature's Fury. While you're raging, the first creature you hit on each of your turns with a weapon attack takes an extra d6 plus half your barbarian level. The extra damage is the same type as what you ever chose when you're raging. So if you're resistant to fire damage, the extra damage that you deal would be fire. This is basically the same thing as a Zealot Barbarian's 3rd level ability. You're just getting it later. Then at 10th level, you are now immune to that damage type. So whatever it was, if you chose fire, thunder, lightning, whatever it was, you are immune to that damage when you start raging, when you choose that at level 10. And difficult terrain doesn't affect your movement. And then lastly, at 14, you get Warcry. When you score a critical hit with a weapon attack while raging, each friendly creature that can hear you as within 60 feet, can use its reaction to move up to half its movement speed and make 1 weapon attack. This effect can only happen once a turn. But remember, you're a barbarian. You can kind of fish for crits with reckless attack. So if you crit, then your whole allies can get like a freebie attack on it. And I really like that. It kind of reminds me of, I think it's the 10th level Tempest Barbarian ability, but slightly different. Like they have a Warcry, but I think it gives everybody advantage. Rather than advantage, yours is now the whole party's coming together to mess people up. And I like that. And then the Monk, I thought was interesting because it kind of reminded me of like a knowledge-seeking monk. And this actually might work really well in my homebrew setting since I have a monk monastery in the mountains, and there's a specific sect of that monastery that deals with knowledge, for knowledge's sake. So bonus proficiencies at 3rd level, medicine or nature proficiency, you pick. And then also herbalism kit. At 3rd level, when you use patient, I like this one a lot. Whenever you use patient defense, you add your intelligence modifier to your armor class for the duration. Again, typically, I've said it many times, intelligence is a dump stat for most people. Specifically a monk, intelligence is probably a dump stat because you're so focused on dex, con, and wisdom that you're probably not too focused on your intelligence. So that's a nice little benefit for a high intelligence, and it's only when you use patient defense, and patient defense costs key points, so I think the cost is justified. Serenity at level 6. After you make a skill check or saving throw, I might make an ability check, but they might have chose skill check so it doesn't work on initiative. But before you know the result, you can spend a key point to roll and add a d6 to your score. This die changes as your monk levels do with your martial arts die, so it starts at a d6, it'll eventually be a d8 and then a d10. And the Suffering at 11. As a bonus action, you can expend up to 3 key points to gain resistance to different types of damage. The number of damage types you may become resistant to equals the number of key points you spent. So if you this bonus lasts for a minute, so it says up to 3 key points. So you could spend 1 key point to say get resistance to fire damage, or 3 key points to get resistance to fire, bludgeoning, and poison damage. for a minute or until you use it again. And then lastly, at 17, deal unto others. If an opponent hits you with a melee attack that deals damage, you can use your reaction to use up to 3 key points to make an unarmed strike against the attacking creature. The number of unarmed strikes you make equals the number of key points you spent. So it's basically someone hits you, you are using your reaction to possibly make 3 strikes against them, which is kind of cool. And I don't think that's too bad. It's coming online at level 17. So we're going to skip ahead through the next couple here, and we're going to get into the weather section. So this is what I was talking about. I really, like, this is the kind of stuff that I like, in theory, to think about for my games, but I don't actually have time to do. So, for instance, this is like what it's like to rest in cold weather. And I don't know if you've ever been out on a job site or out in the woods or anything when it's super cold out. And sometimes it's super hard to fall asleep because you're not obviously trying to. Other times, though, depending on the situation, like wearing warm clothing, it is super easy to fall asleep. You just cuddle up against a tree and you just zonk right out. But I like this, right? So if you're out during the day in the tundra and you don't have any warm clothing and no campfire, it's a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or you take a D6 con damage per hour. If you're wearing warm clothing, it's a DC 8 con saving throw, or 1 cold damage per hour. And then if it's warm clothing and a campfire, no problem. Same thing for night. None is a DC 18 con save, or 2d6 cold per hour. Warm clothing, DC 12, or a D6 cold per hour, or warm clothing in a campfire at night. Same as during the day, no downside. And then they added a couple qualifiers here, which I also really like. Blowing winds adds to the DC and the damage. Howling winds, the same, and blizzarding winds, even more so. And then we have stuff resting on the side, a mountainside, right? And then again, same thing with winds and different penalties. Now we're into the adventure path, a riddle of the Remoras. It says this could be easily added to Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, Legend of the Crystal Shard, and so on. It is just, I mean, it's a really solid adventure that's going to deal, it's Icewind Dale, and it's dealing with Remoras, which are, if you're not familiar with them, they are a really nasty but super cool, like, centipede ice fire monster. And part of what makes them so nasty is they're immune to ice and or cold and fire damage. And if you hit them, they gout out fire, or like, and it deals damage to you when you're close to them. So like that's something you need to consider. You can't really just run up and wail on it. But we know we have the tribes of, the various Uthgardt tribes in the north. So fighting barbarians, our barbarians might fight Remoras and have a lot of problems. And it says this deals with a lost tribe of barbarians, the tribe of the Remoras. Well, there you go. So, I'll just kind of scroll through it here, and you can see information on trying to find them and encountering some of the other tribes. There's also some really choice art in here. Here's a breakdown of the actual Remoras cave where you're going to eventually find yourself. And then the treasure room in the cave and what you'll find in there. A very good adventure. 3 to 6 hours. I'm going to say it's going to depend on your party size, right? Because sometimes these can go really quick. Sometimes they can be really slow depending on how much people want to role play or shop in town or whatnot. Now we're going to move on to magic items. So some of these magic items are just so clean, and I love it. They're just like, took something very simple and made it very elegant, and I like that a lot. So, what are we going to do here? I think, yeah, okay. So I like the Dwarven Puzzle Box. It's just a box that like has something in it that you decide, and it's a DC 25 insight check to open it. So it's like one of those boxes where someone like puts money inside like a box, and you have to like work your way into the box to get like your birthday present. Goodberry Bow. It's just a simple magical bow. And while holding it, you can cast Goodberry once per day and recharges at dawn. Maybe you're a life cleric and you're going to use it for stupid healing. I don't know. But I really like Melkor's Finery because it's so clean, right? So it's fine clothes made for a bard. They always keep clean and free of stains and unwanted dirt. That's a pretty solid enchantment. Everybody should get that if that's a thing you can do. But while you wear these fine clothes, your charisma score can't be lower than 16. And I was wondering where I saw it, and that's basically the same wording as Bark Skin. Bark Skin is while the spell is cast, your armor class can't be lower than 16. So this Melkor's Finery basically took seemingly the same language from Bark Skin and then just applied it to an ability score and made it a magic item. And that's what I'm talking about when I say clean. It's something that already kind of exists in the game, and you're just repurposing it for your own uses. And I really, really like that. And then we have the Wintergreen Bow, which is just a +2 bow, resistance to thunder damage, and some spells. Just Fairy Fire, I think. And then we even have consumables, like mushrooms that you could eat, like potions and stuff. So let's look at the Burning Tooth mushroom right here, right? Red mushrooms grow fang-like protrusions. Eating them causes the consumer 1 piercing point of damage, but the user's mouth begins to drip with acidic saliva. Any bite attack the eater makes for the next 4 hours adds a d4 acid damage. This could be really big if you're like a, let's say a lizard folk, right, who does have a bite attack. You could add acid damage to that, which is pretty neat. And last but not least is our Frigid Folio. This is going to give us all of the new monsters and stuff that we have in here. So I'm just going to scroll. I like this Trawl, which is an elemental creature. It looks like it has, it heals itself if it takes cold damage. It explodes when it dies. It does have a breath weapon as well, which, like, this thing looks hulking. It's an elemental. You probably think like slam attack. And it has claws. And it has a bite, but it also has a breath weapon. We have our Dale Drowned, which is sort of our drowned spirit undead creature here. But I'm a softie. I love the Frostworm. We have the Purple Worm in 5th edition. This is the 3rd edition art for the Purple, or for the Frostworm. So it's basically a cold Icewind Dale variant, if you will, of the Purple Worm. So when this one dies, it explodes, dealing 6d12 cold damage. I should say this one is also challenge rating 13, vulnerable to fire damage, but immune to cold. Has a burrow speed, armor class is 18, hit points are pretty high. It can make a tunnel when it goes underground. Its bite attack does 2d12 plus 8 plus 4d12 cold damage. It has a breath weapon, which I always thought was really cool on like a worm type creature. 30-foot cone, DC 16 con, or 8d12 cold damage, and then it has its Trill, a Shriek that is centered on it, I think. 120-foot radius, DC 16 Wisdom saving throw, or be stunned for a minute. You can make that saving throw at the end of each of your turns. Stunned for a minute, if there's minions, or even if there's not, could be pretty brutal. Then we have some more frozen creatures. And then I like this one, the Glaciex. It's a huge elemental. It's basically like a snow phoenix, if you want to think about it that way. So most all tales contain a bit of truth, and the lore of the snowbirds is no different. Rooted in their being is the instinctual compulsion to remove creatures that seek to upset the balance of nature. And they can make a blizzard. They're basically like Articuno. This is essentially like Articuno, but the Pokemon, but as a monster, and not like very clearly just an adaptation. Has flyby, explodes when it dies. A beak attack with a restrain, and some icy talons. We'll just kind of keep scrolling through here and show. We have a Remoraz Patriarch, which is pretty sweet, and Chieftain. Oh, these are the barbarians. We have Winterwolf Alpha and Winterwolf Pup, in case you want to raise a Winterwolf, and a Winter White, and then we have our various maps that we have in the zip file that you can use. You can see like Targos Cult of Oriel, Lonelywood Fell Woods, Tourmaline Gem Mine, and so on. So thank you again to the DMsGuild for sponsoring this video. That's just wild to me. Again, there'll be a link in the description down below for you to go and pick this up. And you can use the code NERDGUILD1. That's NERDGUILD, all one word, with the number 1 added. I'll put a link in the description and the wording down there. You can use that at checkout. It'll get you $5 off a DMsGuild community content purchase of $15 or more. It can be used once per customer. It expires at the end of this year, so January 1, 2021. So I will have 2 more videos like this with 2 other unique codes, so you can have 3 separate codes for 3 days this week. So thank you again to the DMs Guild for sponsoring this video, and I will see you all next time.